All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Jim McKinney on behalf of the Whatcom Business Alliance and Barbara Chase, the president. I'm stepping in for Tony Larson right now to start off with our annual Leaders of Industry Forum. We have a fantastic group of some of our industry leaders within the county. We're going to have an opportunity to hear their issues and then ask questions about them. And we want to from the beginning, thank the sponsor, Washington Federal, and Tom Pozarycki, for actually stepping up once again in these very challenging times of COVID to help us present this to our members and to the community, to push forward and making our community better and stronger. So, Tom?
Good afternoon, everybody. Tom Pozarycki, the Regional President for WaFd Bank. Welcome to the 2020 Leaders of Industry Forum. WaFd Bank is proud to co-sponsor this event with the Whatcom Business Alliance. We all wish we could hold this event in person, but given the times, we're going to experience our first virtual Leaders of Industry event. So please indulge me for 30 seconds while I share some digital content from WaFd Bank's marketing department. Please cue the video.
Navigating business growth and changing economic factors can feel unsteady. You need a firm foundation to help maintain the balance you need. A proven partner to lean on to keep your operation stable. Funding loans to grow your commercial enterprise. When others pull back, we lean in to keep businesses supported and flourishing. Lock in your funding to our rock-solid record. WaFd Bank.
Thank you very much, Tom. And of course, we really want to thank WaFd for stepping up and doing this in these, again, as you mentioned, very challenging times. For everybody in our community, this is a tough time to figure out how to navigate as we continue to face the COVID shutdowns, the economic challenges from that. We need to have a much better understanding of what we can do and hopefully have this discussion. The importance of the WBA in actually getting together and working through policies and staying together right now is probably stronger and more important than any time we've had since the institution developed, since WBA actually came on board. So there's a fantastic opportunity, I think, to continue using these types of forums to meet the challenge, and then of course stepping out with the industry and whatever information we can provide in our community. I think it's really, really important. So just a couple of, how we're going to proceed through this event today. We will have we've got the 6 speakers right now. Doug Thomas, the president of Bellingham Cold Storage, and Pam Brady from BP, the director of Northwest Government Affairs. Of course, Tom, as from WaFd, Dr. Laurie Trautman from the Director of Policy at Research Institute at Western, and Gerald Barron, the Communications Director for probably Whatcom Family Farmers, and someone I know, Laura McKinney from Alcoa, who's representing the Youth Employment Services for the WBA, the Yes Whatcom program, and she'll discuss workforce development. We'll give each one of these people an opportunity to discuss their issues and to present to you some ideas in 3 to 5 minutes. And following that, after each one of them goes through their place and position here and what's happening in their community and the way they look at things right now, we'll do questions and answers. And I've got some questions. I've got a series of questions to ask them. After we finish with those questions, we'll leave that up to the audience through chat to go ahead and reach out and send your questions in, and we'll go through those and try to answer what we can and ask them specifically. I will moderate that. Please put as many of us are getting used to it, put your Zoom on mute while the speakers are speaking, and we'll try to get through this as best as possible. Again, challenging times, but a great opportunity to experience technology in the world today, And we'll go ahead and start hearing from each one of our panelists. So we'll start off with you, Doug, if you would. Just give us a little bit of introduction of what the issues are and what you're willing, what you can talk about, and get us started.
Happy to. Thanks, Jim. Doug Thomas. I've been in the industry most of my life. I've been back here to Bellingham Cold Storage since 1992. We operate about 19 cold storage facilities on 3 campuses, 2 here in Bellingham and 1 in Stanwood now. We handle a little over 2 billion pounds of product every year for food that is distributed both domestically here in the U.S. and around the world. I would just, I guess I'll wait for your other questions, Jim, related to the COVID-related things and or how outlook for the rest of the industry. But I can just say my team did a great job of putting process documentation together and doing heightened COVID response and preparedness beyond what basic CDC requirements or recommendations were, and that we've weathered the storm pretty good, considering we have about 1,450 people on site. So, yeah, that's about it.
Thank you, Doug. We know the most important thing that we have all needed is a little bit of comfort and confidence that we're going to be able to eat. So we very much appreciate operations like yours keeping up the effort to protect their supply chain. Another very big challenge that we've had through the crisis, of course, has been oil fluctuation prices and just keeping up with demand, but at the same time having a real decline in demand. And I know that's been a big challenge out there at Cherry Point. So Pam, if you could just do a quick introduction and talk about the issues that you have.
Hi, yeah, thank you, Jim, and thanks, Tom and Washington Federal for sponsoring very generously this forum today, and I'm very glad to be here. So thanks for the invitation too. Yes, I represent BP, BP Cherry Point Refinery, and it's been unprecedented circumstances in our industry this year, obviously with the change in market demand that we've seen. But also, I mean, I think our company was on a journey that began at the beginning of the year before COVID really hit to change around the kind of company we are. And we have talked a lot this year and made very, I think, big steps toward a lower carbon future for BP. And that, is happening before COVID. And I think probably is happening even though we're in this COVID situation, and perhaps in some ways COVID has really accelerated these ambitions for BP. But we laid out, I think, a pretty strident strategy. We've announced that we want to be a net zero company by 2050 or sooner. And for us, we've really changed around the way that we think of our company. We have announced that instead of being an international oil company, we're going to be an integrated energy company, and we're going to increase the kinds of investments that accelerate a lower carbon future. And so for BP globally, and in the US as well, it means investment in renewables. We're going to significantly scale up our low carbon investment 10 times over what we've been doing in the past. From about 500 million a year to about 5 billion over the next decade. And that's a pretty big commitment. At Cherry Point Refinery, I think, people still need the fuels that we make. They still travel, although of course, not as much in a year like this. But, our society still relies on the fuels that we make, and we're going to continue to deliver that. And we're going to do it over time in a lower carbon way. We've made significant investments over the last couple of years in our renewables capability at Cherry Point, and we make a renewable diesel there now. And we have aspirations to do much more in that space and to do the processing of the products that we make now in a lower carbon way than we have in the past. And we have a couple of projects that will help us do that. That we've recently submitted for. So we're working on our low carbon ambition. It's going to take a lot of effort. It's going to take all aspects, all opportunities that we can garner to be able to be a net zero company. But we're on that journey. As far as just response to COVID, I really couldn't be prouder to work where I work at Cherry Point. We've had an incredible engagement. I think, you know, early on in this response in the county, we loaned employees to be a part of the unified command effort and shared expertise with our folks who were very familiar with the incident command structure. We donated PPE. We gave about 7 pallets of PPE that we could spare at the refinery to be dispersed to first responders in the county. And there's just been a number of other things, just even the way that our employees have responded in the workplace by protecting one another, by being early adopters of face masks and, you know, just really diligent hygiene to prevent the spread of the virus. So anyway, enough for me for now. I look forward to being a part of this panel as we go. Thank you
very much, Pam. And you know, the challenges there have been difficult with the price fluctuations, especially early on in the crisis. It's pretty crazy. And of course, that impacts everybody in our community. And it affects, you know, transportation distribution. It also has a significant impact on you know, our farm products and what we do out there. And so, you know, thankfully we've got a good experienced person from the community here, Gerald that's can talk to us a little bit today about Whatcom family farmers and of course some of the issues and the impact that they've had. Gerald?
Thank you very much, Jim, and thank you for the opportunity. It's a great opportunity to talk about some of the issues facing agriculture. And just briefly on Whatcom family farmers, we started about 5 years ago, and in Whatcom County, I'm actually the executive director of Safe Family Farming, which is a statewide organization that evolved out of Whatcom family farmers. And now we have Eastern Washington family farmers and Skagit family farmers, and all of these groups are working together, working to unite farmers, and then to be able to speak out publicly in order to protect the future of family farming in our state and in our communities. We're finding that more and more challenging, and COVID is certainly part of that challenge, but I'm not going to talk about COVID challenges because in the overall scheme of things, we've got some bigger challenges than COVID. So, you know, most people are going to be talking about and have already about how you adapt to change and how do you survive and thrive in a changing environment, such as what Pam just talked about. For farmers, we have a little bit different issue. We have a real existential issue. The way things are moving right now with our state, there will be no farming in Whatcom County in the not too distant future. That sounds dramatic, but I want to explain what I mean. So I'm going to talk a little bit about state problems, but we also have some local issues that just saw the Whatcom Planning Department put out some shoreline management plan changes that look concerning, and looks like they're trying to make those changes with minimal public input. So that's one thing. On the federal level, we have things like trade issues that are seriously affecting our berry growers in particular. But the state is really where our primary concerns are. And in several directions. Labor is one. Farm labor is very, very hard to come by. But we have some strong farm labor advocates, union advocates, activists in this in Washington State, and particularly in Whatcom County. The state is state leadership, both the agency and the administrative side, are doing a lot that is harmful to farmers in terms of adding additional unnecessary burdens and costs. So that's one thing. From a dairy farming standpoint, one of the major concerns is environmental litigation that is being supported by our governments. The EPA is one big issue we've been dealing with for some time, and they're a false science report that's being used as a basis for litigation. But our own State Department of Ecology refuses to protect and defend its own pollution permit that applied to dairy farms and allow the litigation that shouldn't be going on to continue to go on. And now also looks like they're going to be rewriting the CAFO permit, as it's called, or concentrated animal feeding operation. But all of those are probably survivable. What is probably not survivable is something that affects everybody in Whatcom County and is only now beginning to be understood, and that is water rights adjudication. If the state goes forward with its plan, I will tell you what the lawyer for the farmers have told the farmers is that the good thing about the state's plan is you have 50 years to plan your exit from farming. It is that certain. If you're not aware of the water rights adjudication, it's basically when the state takes all water right holders to court in order to determine who has the right to water. That happened in the Yakima River Basin a few years ago. It took 40 years of court action to resolve those issues, and actually ended up being resolved in negotiations. Lawyers involved in this say that there are 5,400 water rights holders in Whatcom County, and it will cost $10,000 to $100,000 for each of those to defend their water rights. But the outcome is all but certain. This is triggered by both the tribes requesting water rights adjudication, and what the reason why it means so much to everyone, but especially farmers, is because there is no storage in the Nooksack River Basin, unlike basically every other river system that feeds communities like this. So with the tribes will undoubtedly be granted senior water rights. All other water users, including cities, the public utilities district, farmers, any water rights holders will be given junior rights. And because there is no storage, it means that in the summer and early fall, when the river is at the lowest flow, the low flow rules established by the state will come into effect, and all water users that are junior to the senior, which will be assigned to the tribes, will not have access to water. That already has happened in the Yakima Basin. The city of Roslyn lost its access to water. It cost the city of 1,000 people $600,000 to secure water that they need for the future. But for farmers, it's not possible for them to continue to plan for the future if there is no certainty of access to water for irrigation. I'm going to stop there, Jim, because I could go on for a while. It's really important that everyone in our community understand the city of Bellingham is strongly opposing adjudication. The public utilities district, the small cities are being affected by it. We need our county executive to be a little bit stronger in this and oppose this as well. But this is something I hope everyone learns as much as you possibly can about, because right now it's a plan that's moving forward, and it is very, very concerning for the future. Thank you, Jim.
I want to say thank you, Gerald, but actually my stomach's hurting a little bit right now.
Sorry about that.
Making me a little bit nervous, right? Yeah, these are incredible challenges, and we're seeing continual action, even at a local level, that's really impacting potential for business in our community. I think it's really important to understand those issues, and certainly they're broad, certainly with Cherry Point, with the farming community, and of course with manufacturing and our ability. And some of the challenges that we have that have actually been around for a while that many of the members of the WBA have discussed is actually getting workforce as well. So the WBA has been attempting to try to at least address some of those questions and develop some opportunity to develop a workforce here and bring people on board to help impact and provide better prepared employees and actually help people understand what's happening here in the community. And Laura McKinney's been working not only out at Alcoa, but also working with WBA and many of the businesses to try and help with that. So do you want to talk a little bit about that, Laura?
Hi, sure. My name is Laura McKinney, and I'm the Northwest Government Affairs and Public Relations Director for Alcoa. Located out here at Intalco, and it's very quiet out here at Intalco right now. But one project that I've been working on for a number of years now is workforce development, and it is something that is it's a passion of mine. It's really a needed element to our economic development, our overall economic health in the county. If businesses are having a hard time finding, qualified, available workforce, you're going to see that ripple effect, that impact very quickly. We also see it from the other side. I'm on the Blaine School Board up here in our Blaine School District. And what we see too from the high school side is students who are not, they're not clear on where they're going to go when they finish high school. We have some kids who are very well prepared and well-directed. They're going to go on to a 4-year college degree. But we have a lot of kids, about 60% of our kids in the county, who do not go on to a 4-year degree. And many of them are unaware of the opportunities that they have right here at home in Whatcom County, particularly with our tremendous manufacturing capabilities, some of the really amazing things we're doing out in farming and agriculture. And so this project, Yes, Whatcom, was initiated by the Whatcom Business Alliance and the Board of Directors in order to really try to bridge that gap. How do we help the kids in high school see themselves in the future and in the near future doing some great work and following some really good opportunities that we have here. So over the last couple of years, we've been doing outreach to the schools, through the school districts, through the career counselors, and really understanding an opportunity that we have to help with a career and technical education development in our school districts. And it's something going on at the state level. It's a conversation that is happening very vigorously around career-connected learning. And so here in Whatcom County, we've been trying to bring that conversation and those opportunities here. We work with a group down in Skagit, called Skagit STEM, which has now grown and expanded, and it's become Northwest Washington STEM network. And essentially, we're trying to make very clear pathways between what you're studying in high school and how that can carry forward into a well-paying opportunity here in Whatcom County. So happy to be here to talk about some of the things that we're working on and just connections we're trying to make and sort of knit those pieces together here in the county.
I think it's a really important effort to develop the youth so they understand what's available in our community, understand what direction they need to go in order to get jobs, and then look at opportunity with family wage jobs right here and not have to run away and move on to some other place. And of course, overall, we need a good business environment in order to protect that. One of the real big impacts on our economy here in Whatcom County is really the cross-border traffic and the trade. Of course, with COVID and the lockdown, that's a bit challenging. Thankfully, they've allowed commerce to go through, but obviously individuals have not been able to travel without specific approvals and special circumstances. That has an impact. And Dr. Trautman is here from the Policy Center at Western. And can you go ahead, Laurie, give us a little bit of an understanding and background of what you're doing and what issues we're facing?
Yeah, thanks, Jim, and thanks for having me, and hello to everybody out there. I'll just give you a brief background on our institute because we're very unique. We were created in 2006 largely out of a partnership between a professor here at Western and our Senator Patty Murray, who really recognized that after 9/11 happened and the border changed the way it functioned, that it had a really big impact on the Washington state economy and of course on the Whatcom County economy as well. So we were created to basically be a dedicated applied research institute that would study the US-Canada border for sort of evidence-based policy making for both the US side and the Canadian side as well, because obviously the border is a collaborative endeavor. So we work with faculty and students, but actually even more than our on-campus work is our off-campus work, which is primarily partnerships with different coalitions, different levels of government, different business stakeholders, and very closely with both the US and Canadian federal security agencies as well. So to give you a sense of one of the big projects that we do every 5 years, it's called the Passenger Vehicle Intercept Survey, and we work with the Whatcom Council of Governments on that. And we actually take a team of Western students up to the border, and they stop about thousands and thousands, 10,000 cars or something like that, that are crossing the border, and ask them, where are you from and where are you going and why are you going there? And that gives us a really good idea of how many Canadians visit Whatcom County, where they go, and why they go there. And that data doesn't exist anywhere else because it's basically involves stopping people and asking them why they're crossing. So we work with the consulates on both sides as well to basically broaden our understanding of the impact of Canadians on our economy. And This year has been by far the busiest year that I could have imagined in terms of border policy, because we've entered a completely unprecedented situation. Not even after the terrorist attacks of 9/11 did the border get restricted in the way it is restricted now. So I'll get into some of that later on, but I'll just sort of put out there that there's a really great effort in our county and within our state, and also at the national scales as well, to tackle this issue, both in the short-term way of how are we going to move beyond these continual 30-day extensions, which are really hard for businesses to plan for, often really hard on families as well. But also how we're going to kind of, in the long term, I won't even say return to the way the border had functioned pre-COVID, because I don't think that's where we're going to end up. We're going to end up with a border that functions a little bit differently. And so there's a lot of expertise in this region here that can really help to shape how we get the border moving again. And hopefully it doesn't take too long into 2021, but I think we have a few more months at least.
Thanks, Dr. Trautman. Yeah, we live right up there in Blaine, very close to the border. It's very difficult for the businesses that kind of depended on a lot of, if nothing else, Amazon shipping to the post box. Yep. But yeah, big challenges there. And of course, with all of these issues that we're facing and the challenges, finance is a pretty big problem, and understanding where we're going and what's happening. We personally are going through a house buying person. I'd want to say to Tom, it's been fantastic working with your office in Ferndale and Diana. So as we go through a build project, and WaFd has been fantastic for us. So, but at the same time, there's a lot of challenges out there with businesses struggling right now and trying to stay afloat. And of course, the federal funding that came forward it's made it a big challenge for some. Others have been surviving, but now we're kind of in a transition phase without additional assistance that's yet to be approved. So, please talk to us about WaFd, where you stand, and we'll get into it a little bit more. But please talk.
Sure, glad to see we're taking care of you over there, Jim. Tom Pozarycki, a career banker for 23 years. I moved out here from Virginia after college to kind of enjoy the great outdoors in the Northwest. My entire professional banking career has been here in the Puget Sound. So just a little personal insight, my wife and I are currently managing 3 children, and we're all trying to work remote and learn remote. So anyone who has any helpful suggestions, I am all ears. We're making it work. It's a blast, but it is pioneering. So I've been with WaFd for 13 years now, and I remember a bank that shunned technology. When I started, I was one of 10 people at the bank that had a computer. Mind you, this was 13 years ago. To say that the bank was a late adopter of technology, that is an understatement. And I mention that because today we have this goal of being a digital-first bank, and we have made tremendous strides. Whether it's outfitting bankers with laptops, with VPN technology, so that everybody can work remote, or building a very robust online platform with treasury management systems that now handle 99% of all transaction volume. Is all being done online now. So we are well on our way to being a digital-first bank. And I mention that because so many of you are running your businesses trying to figure out how best to adopt technology. How do you fold that into your business? And I'm very happy to share what has worked and what did not work. I mean, this was a decade in the making, and so we have some lessons learned that would be a good discussion point. So a little bit about WaFd. The bank was founded in 1917, and we just announced our 151st consecutive quarterly cash dividend. We do business in 8 Western states, have 234 branches. The size of the bank, $18.8 billion in total assets. $2 billion in equity. So the largest bank headquartered in the Northwest. We're here in Seattle. The bank is rock solid financially. We just completed our fiscal year end on September 30th. And if you look at our financials, you'll see we had $1.7 billion in cash on the balance sheet. So you think about that, an $18 billion bank with $1.7 billion in cash on the balance sheet. Our CEO, Brent Beardall, said it very well. It's one thing to say you're financially strong. It's another thing to prove it. And we wanted to prove it for our clients, for all of you, We want to be there when you need us. And you can have comfort in knowing that you have a bank behind you. So Jim, you mentioned earlier that we are in very challenging times, and clearly we can see that. So from a banker's perspective, I'll tell you what we are seeing. We're seeing a further divide in this market between the haves and the have-nots. WaFd Bank made record foundation grants from our WaFd Foundation into all different organizations throughout the community. We also made a $20 million investment into a local fund that was coupled with many of the large organizations in the Northwest. That fund has a strategic purpose to buy apartment buildings and decrease the rent. This is to make workforce housing affordable for tenants. It's a really cool strategy, and they're going to roll out their program with Urban Land Institute at some point. So it's a model that maybe others can take to other markets. But the bank was at the forefront of helping be a part of the investment in that fund. And let's not forget 6,600 PPP loans, this paycheck protection loans that the bank was a part of. The average loan amount was something like $135,000. So this is truly small business in the community. Because of our technology in the bank, we were able to load level, onboarding all those clients, getting them organized and in the queue across 2,000 employees that were working round the clock. It was amazing to see. Now, rarely does the banking industry get called to duty by Congress, and we can talk about this later, but it was proud to be part of the solution this time around, and to be a banker. So we're working pretty hard to meet the needs of those in the community, but at the same time, we're dealing with record loan production and record business opportunities that are largely falling out of some of the larger banks who are changing their strategies a little bit. So you have that dichotomy that we're seeing, and we're managing through it, and are looking forward to this next year as well. So we're very pleased to be here today and look forward to the panel discussion.
We're going to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to hit you first.
Okay.
And this probably is to help educate all of us, but a lot of us went through the challenges of 2008, 2009, and with the financial crisis. You're talking about reactions right now from both Congress and the administration and taking quick action. Can you talk to us a little bit about the differences between the 2009, 2008 financial crisis and what we're seeing today? And you talked a little bit about where you're positioned, but let's go a little bit deeper into that for a lot of our businesses out there to understand.
Yeah, this happened quickly. The Great Recession back in 2009, 10, you could see that sort of coming. This happened very quickly. And so it was broad-based, impacted a lot of business, and you had a very strong reaction from Congress with almost $3 trillion in stimulus money being deployed. And the banking industry was asked to essentially serve as an ATM machine to help facilitate getting these funds into the community. And it was great to see many community banks and regional banks really step up and take that responsibility on. I've always viewed banking as a very noble profession, and this was an opportunity for everyone to step up and take on that responsibility, and so many did. It was great to see my colleagues around the state. We were collaborating and talking about how much capacity do you have to take things on, and it was just great to see. Now you asked, is there another round of stimulus coming? I think we all hope so. We certainly hope so, but we'll wait and see. There's the questions I get asked are, can you lend some money to me in my business? And at some point, a business doesn't need a loan anymore. It needs a grant. It needs equity. And you're seeing a lot of companies that are getting into that position, particularly certain segments that have really ground where their top line revenue is just gone. You can look at the hospitality industry, the cruise industry. That's very difficult.
So and again, I'll move on. I'm going to spread the questions around the group, but I want to follow up with this. So in 2008, 2009, 2010, you had the TARP. You had a lot of banks that failed. You had a lot of issues, and a lot of the financial industry itself was the real problem.
Right.
Now it looks to me like the financial industry is actually part of the solution, which seems quite interesting.
Right, which was, as a banker, I feel a lot better about being a banker now, because you're sort of living your mission more and living your values. You know, you're right, back during the Great Recession, housing sort of led a lot of the damage, and you know, we saw that here very acutely. This time around, housing is actually leading us out of some of these difficult times, and you can look at your house in you know, and look at the value, and it's extremely strong. So you have that experience that's certainly different. But banks being part of the solution this time around, that's good to see. Absolutely.
And of course, you know, the financial challenges that we face, when you bring, that's one part of it. The jobs piece of it is, you know, really important. We've certainly had some issues here in the community with some of the bigger industries.
Right.
Challenges. And I'm going to move on to Pam, and you know, you employ a lot of people out there at BP. You've got a lot of contractors, and you know, the impact, the wages you pay, the impact on the community is significant. And as we are addressing the COVID challenges, we still have these institutional questions we have right here in the county about how the regulatory environment restricts and attempts to impact your business, refining oil right now. And you talked wonderfully about where BP is going in the future, but let's talk specific contentious issues with your operations right now here in Whatcom County, and what, you know, give us a little background of the real challenges you face continuing operations and keeping those people employed in our businesses that all benefit from it.
Yeah, we do have a sizable workforce. I mean, you know, 825 to 850 roughly. And then we probably have 500 to 600 contractors that come through the turnstiles every day to support refinery operations and maintenance. So when we attract investment at Cherry Point, when we have big projects, we employ even more people. And so there is you know, a direct relation to the kind of policies that we have in place in Whatcom County, and the confidence that a company like BP, or any company really, has in you know, in their ability to continue with the kinds of investments that employ large numbers of people. We've been involved in the last 4 years in a code revision, essentially, in Whatcom County. It started out as a comprehensive plan update, where the county signaled some real changes to the direction that the comprehensive plan was going as it relates to the Cherry Point industrial area. And following those changes in the comprehensive plan is a pretty extensive code revision that will change the permitting laws that the refinery is under. Both refineries in the Cherry Point industrial area, and the Petrogas, which is a fuels offloading facility, or I guess a propane and butane offloading facility. And so, you know, landing the right policies in this space is going to be critical for the county to be able to count on these companies continuing to invest here. And I think it's in everybody's best interest that the Cherry Point industries, which are really, you know, they are critically important to, you know, thousands of people, literally thousands of people who work in Whatcom County and rely on those jobs and the investment that they provide. We have to land the right kind of policies. You know, specifically, the county has been very concerned about the business of transloading. They have sought to create code revision that makes it so that certain commodities can't come to Whatcom County, be parked here for a period of time, and be offloaded using infrastructure that we currently have or potentially new infrastructure that would be built here. They want to ensure that that kind of business is not attracted to Whatcom County. And they feel particularly concerned about it because we do already have energy infrastructure in this location. And so they've endeavored, we've had a moratorium in place that prevents permits from being filed that would build out those kinds of industries. And we've had now 10 iterations of the moratorium. And we've been working on a code revision through this process to land the right kind of policies. We can understand that they want to block a business like that from investing here. We're not in that business, but we are in, the energy business, and we operate a refinery, and we need to be very careful that the land use code revision that they're using to block this export doesn't adversely impact the business that we're in. We need to be able to have the kind of regulatory certainty that's required to attract investment, and it's big investment for the future. We have aspirations for our refinery. We want to be best in class. We want to have the best equipment. We want to have really efficient equipment so that we are using energy resources wisely, and we want to be competitive in this market. And we also want to continue to transition the business so that we can pivot and become the kind of energy company that we think society is demanding that energy companies become in the future. So, lower carbon intensity, net zero. The products that we make will have lower carbon footprint or be offset. And to do that, we need to be able to get permits, and we need to be able to attract investment in this facility. So we're working on that. We've been, in this process for a long time. In 2019, we began a process with the Planning Commission that they really took the time that I think was necessary to dive deeply into the code and to understand the implications of the changes and potentially some of the pitfalls that could be associated with policy choices, and really listened to industry, and they really listened to NGOs, and I think they came back with a document that we could live with, and we shared as much. There were some tweaks that the council wanted to continue to make after that document was submitted to them, and there's some additional changes that the NGOs would like to see, and there's some changes that we would like to see. And so we've actually been in, I think, a very productive conversation with the environmental groups to come up with some language that we can all live with, something that addresses their concern, something that addresses our concern, and gets the job done for the council. I think all parties are really working to meet in the middle on this, and that it's a bit of a slog. It takes a long time, but we've been having successful meetings for the last handful of months, and I think we need to continue to have those in order to land the right kind of policy for Whatcom County.
A follow-up question, actually, from one of the participants, and they specifically asked, with the Intalco closure or curtailment and the loss of those very significant number of jobs, is the county being a little more open or listening and understanding what the impact is here, or can you make a judgment on that at this point yet?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the code is really specific to that kind of property. It's really more about restricting the business of transloading fossil fuels. And so, we have, the Cherry Point industrial area is, it's a wonderful asset for Whatcom County. We have set aside land years ago for the development of industry. We have a number of natural attributes and man-made attributes. We have deep water ports. You don't have to dredge. We have access to rail. We have land and space, and we have a great workforce in the county as well. So there's lots of good reasons why companies might want to continue to look at Whatcom County, but I think they have to be very careful to signal that Whatcom County is open for business and not trying to, preclude the kinds of investment that I think the people who live here want to see.
Thanks. And, you know, the impact on, and we mentioned Alcoa, and of course, you know, Laura works at Alcoa, but the impact with those jobs that are gone, people that have left, and of course, what we're trying to do to develop workforce here in the county. What are the biggest opportunities that you see and the challenges, Laura, for workforce development and where we're headed with, you know, these curtailments, a significant impact of loss of jobs?
Yes, and just to address the elephant in the room, yes, Intalco is a curtailed facility, meaning that we are no longer actively operating. We're not producing any metal right now. The facility is under a care and maintenance program. So we are maintaining our permitting, and the equipment is sort of being put to bed for now. When we make a decision to curtail a facility, the time frame that we're typically looking at, because it is very costly to restart something like a smelter. So the time frame you're looking at is 12 to 18 months in the future. When we announced the curtailment, I was really quite concerned about, of course, our workforce. Where were they going to go and what were they going to do? We, you know, initially there was still, and this was in April, May timeframe, and we did, at this point, I believe we have laid off just over 600 people. Of our total workforce at the time was 700. And we were able to find, you know, a lot of folks were able to find other employment in the county because there's such a demand for skilled craft. Folks who are millwrights and electricians. There's just a real demand for that. We're not necessarily producing enough to replace those folks. And so in thinking of that, there's a great opportunity to work with our unions and with our high schools. And there's a program actually in the state called AJAC. It's the Aerospace Joint Apprenticeship Committee. And we worked with them at Alcoa before our curtailment. They come in and they can help develop millwright apprenticeships and some of these programs that will help to grow some more of our skilled craft folks. So I would say, honestly, what we're shooting for, and the really, I think, sort of low-hanging fruit here is really getting to the high school kids, you know, as they're in this 10th, 11th grade time frame, when you really see a lot of disengagement from kids who have determined they're not going on to a 4-year college. And then they're sitting in high school and saying, what am I still doing here? Where is this going to get me? Is really getting back in there and working with our technical colleges and our community colleges to do some dual credit and with the apprenticeships to see what they can be learning while they're in high school that will start to build credit for them into a technical program that so they could come out of high school even with a certificate already without having an incurred debt, and then can be qualified to go on to some of these other programs, go into a facility. And I know a lot of the high school kids, when I talk to them, they would say, I don't really think I know how to do anything yet, so I'm going to keep going to school or something until I feel like I know how to do something. And I said, you know, we'll teach you what you need to know how to do. We just need you to get here. So I think there's just a disconnect, and we're really trying to work on that, reaching back to the high schools, but also working to integrate our technical college and our community college in these internship and work-based learning opportunities. So kids in high school can try something and, you know, say, gosh, I really think I'd like to have an outside job. I want to work with my hands, and then go try it. And if they say, gosh, you know, actually that is not going to do it for me, there's still time to pivot and do something else. So, you know, when I was a kid, it was called a summer job. We don't really do much of that so much anymore. And we're working on, you know, our labor laws really preclude a lot of real work for our students before they're 18. So that's another component of all this. trying to see what we can do to overcome some of those hurdles and really get kids hands-on as quickly as possible.
How much support? So when working through this initiative, WPA, I've obviously assisted with it. Can you talk about the support that exists out there and kind of this disconnect and what help you're getting? One of the questions from one of the participants is, want to know, okay, we've got a problem, and finding good employees is critical. Developing those employees is essential for our businesses. And how effective is the system, the education system, our administrators, our legislators, in actually helping develop this? Talk about those disconnects.
I think it's a great time right now. There's a lot of discussion and a lot of focus on where maybe we overcorrected trying to send all of our kids to college. And, there's some silver linings to what's happened to us in our adaptation around COVID. I know it's been very difficult to have kids at home remote learning. There's no doubt about that. But I think you've also seen that your work day from school has been compressed. I know that our kids are done with school by 12:30. So when you get them back into a building and you can look at a high school student and say, you've gotten your core work here done by 12:30, what could we do with the rest of that afternoon? How could we really use that time wisely and get you some hands-on work experience? So I think there's some real opportunity there. We, in Whatcom County, as of late, there's just kind of a synergy of people and a lot of focus on really trying to crack this nut. We have been working on this project for some years now, and it's taken a while to really get into the school system. They have a captive audience with our students. And so when you go into the school system, you begin to understand that they also have so many requirements from the state that they're checking a lot of boxes and not necessarily thinking about what the intent of that box originally was. So they're saying, oh, we have a high school and beyond plan, and that requires you to think about your career. So we talk twice a week for 15 minutes about careers. Like, well, okay, you've clicked the box, but do you know, are those relevant? Are you looking within our community to see if those careers actually still exist? In some cases, schools have instructors who teach a course because that's what they know how to teach, not because there's any demand for that job anymore. So there is there's definitely an understanding. There's some groundwork has been laid, and I think that we're really making some progress. I will say that we're planning a virtual career fair. Again, when you talk about pivoting for the new times here, we're doing a virtual career fair with Blaine High School and trying to really get into the kids and talk about not necessarily what are you interested in versus what are you well suited to do. We're looking at aptitude versus interest. You've got a lot of kids out there and you say, what would you like to do? And they all want to be a YouTube influencer, or, I'm a new TikTok star and that's going to sustain me forever. There are very few of those people. So when we talk to the high school kids, they don't know what they don't. People. Right. Well, their parents don't want them to be. Yeah. But you say they don't know what they don't know. And so we're working with a new program. It's called U Science. And I urge anyone to take a look at that if you have an interest. It's YOU Science. And it's an aptitude assessment that really gets into different kinds of spatial reasoning and sequential reasoning and really looks at what kids are apt to be able to do. And we're going to try to match that up in a way with our industries and our community and try to have some real conversations about what the kids can get to, right out of high school and give it a try. And if that's not what you want to do, there's a lot of other things you can do beyond that. So trying to get them to take those first steps.
And we're going to start this at Blaine, but we want to be able to do it throughout the county. Labor is a big issue. It's got to be a big issue for the farm community, Gerald. So, I want to talk about that. What other issues there? And of course, I'm going to follow that up with some more discussion on the water issues. But talked about labor and the challenges farmers have here in our county.
Well, yeah, finding labor for farmers is a big issue, and it's been made much more complicated and challenging because of the activism. Most of that actually originating in Bellingham with Community to Community and Rosalinda Guillen. The federal government has provided a sort of a stopgap program called the Guest Worker Program, or H-2A, and that is a very important program. It's very, very expensive for farmers, but Washington State has become this year, I think for the first time, the #1 user of guest workers. And guest workers come for a season with a legal visa to work. But the labor activists that are wanting to see farm worker unions don't like this program, Rosalinda Guillen in particular, because it does provide that stopgap for the labor. And so she has been fighting this hard since 2013. When the COVID struck, she tried to get Governor Inslee to ban all guest workers from coming into the state. That would be about 22,000 workers that would not have been able to come in, and it would have devastated the fruit harvest in Eastern Washington in particular. Whatcom County farmers have avoided for several years using guest workers because out of fear of being targeted by these activists, and that is getting more and more challenging to them because finding those workers, you know, the immigration situation in our country has led to a real decline in available farm workers. And pay is not the issue. For guest workers and domestic workers who work with them, the minimum wage this year was $15.83 an hour set by the federal government. Most of those workers get paid $20 to $25 an hour. So Laura, as you're talking about workforce development, there are lots of good opportunities, especially on a seasonal basis for people who are looking for work, and the pay is actually pretty good. But what we find is that, most Americans choose not to do that, which is why we have that big labor shortage. And our problem right now in this state is that those activists have the ear of the governor and of the State Department of Labor and Industry, and particularly the ESD, Employment Security Department, who are continually looking to add more costs and more regulations to make that very, very expensive program even more expensive. So that's what we're involved in dealing with.
That's incredibly challenging. And again, sometimes people have to remember that more government may not necessarily be the best.
Well, the real point, and I'd like to make this because it's a connecting point to what everyone has talked about. What I think we have seen, as whether it's relating to Cherry Point Industries or some of the regulatory issues, those who are pursuing whether it's environmental regulations or more burdens have been very, very effective in dealing with the press, the media, and particularly voters. Now that's an overall trend, I realize, I look at the people who are on this call, the speakers on this call, and probably a lot of the people who are watching. If we were to get more united, if we were to come together more and get more focused on educating the voters and the public about what is really at stake, people want farming to stay in our state and in our community. And yet they are often behind policies that are actually driving them out. And it's because their voices are not being heard. So I would really like to make an appeal and Whatcom Business Alliance can play a great role in sort of bringing these people together to speak out more.